Footage from California's Central Valley is circulating online, and the people watching it cannot believe what they are seeing. Not wildfires, not flooding. Something quieter, slower, and in many ways, far more terrifying. The ground itself is gone, not washed away, not blown apart, simply lower than it used to be. Buildings that once sat level now lean at angles their architects never intended. Canal walls that were built straight now curve in ways that defy engineering logic. Roads buckle and split for no obvious reason, as if the earth underneath simply decided researchers at Stanford University published findings that should have dominated every national news cycle for weeks. They discovered that California's Central Valley has lost as much ground in the past 16 years as it did during the entire 50-year period before that. Read that again. Half a century of sinking compressed into just 16 years. The Earth is not just sinking, it is accelerating its descent. And in May 2025, California's Department of Water Resources released a projection so stark that it reads like a disaster film script. If current trends hold, the system that delivers water to 27 million Californians could see deliveries cut by 87% within 20 years. This is not a regional inconvenience. This valley grows 40% of America's fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Your almonds, your tomatoes, your lettuce. All of it grown on land that is literally vanishing beneath the farmer's feet. To understand just how badly things have gone wrong, you need to understand how they were supposed to work. The San Joaquin Valley, the southern half of California's Central Valley, covers 20,000 square miles. It generates over $50 billion in crops every single year. For more than a century, that productivity rested on something most people never thought about. Massive underground aquifers, built over millions of years as Sierra Nevada snowmelt filtered down through layers of sand, gravel, and clay. These aquifers are not underground lakes. They are porous rock formations, more like a sponge than a reservoir. When you drill a well and pump, you are pulling water from the tiny spaces between particles. In a healthy system, the water you remove is replenished each winter. Rain and snowmelt seep back down, the sponge refills, and the cycle continues. For decades in the mid-20th century, that is almost exactly what happened here. California completed its State Water Project aqueduct system in the 1970s, bringing surface water down from the north, and the valley stabilized. The land held, the system worked. Then, in 2006, everything changed. California entered a period of drought that would grip the state for nearly 2 decades. Surface water deliveries from the State Water Project collapsed, sometimes falling to zero. Farmers were left with a brutal choice: stop irrigating and lose everything, or pump groundwater. They pumped. Year after year, in drought after drought, they went deeper into the earth, pulling water that had accumulated over thousands of years. What Stanford satellite data revealed is the consequence of that pumping, captured in millimeter-precise measurements from orbit. The Central Valley has dropped by volumes equivalent to everything it sank during the entire period from 1925 to 1970. In some locations, the ground is dropping more than a foot per year, not over a decade, not over a generation, every single year. The footage people are sharing online begins to make complete sense when you understand what is happening underground. But here's what makes this story unlike almost any other environmental crisis. The footage only shows you the beginning. The real catastrophe is not visible at all. Stanford researchers built computational models to understand exactly what mechanism is driving the collapse, and what they found was worse than anyone expected. It is not the shallow layers. The problem is deep clay. Aquifer systems are layered. Near the surface, you have coarse sand and gravel. These materials compress and bounce back when water is removed and then returned. They have elasticity. But deeper down, sometimes thousands of feet underground, lie thick layers of fine-grained clay. These clays hold water, but they release it slowly and reluctantly. When groundwater levels drop far enough, these deep clay layers begin to compact under the immense pressure of everything sitting above them. And unlike sand and gravel, clay does not recover. When clay particles are squeezed together, they form new bonds. The space between them closes permanently. It is not a sponge being squeezed. It is a sponge being crushed into a dense, impermeable mass that can never expand again. Stanford's 2024 study determined that over 90% of the subsidence in the Central Valley is coming from these deep clay layers. And the finding that changed everything follows directly from that. These layers will continue compacting for decades, possibly centuries, after groundwater levels stabilize. Think about what that actually means. Even if California achieved perfect water balance tomorrow, even if every single pump in the valley shut off tonight and the aquifers were fully recharged, the damage already done means the land will keep sinking. The deep clay a mile underground is collapsing under its own weight, and there is no mechanism on Earth to reverse it. That is what the footage is really showing, not the result of a crisis that is still unfolding, the result of a process that is now permanent. The infrastructure damage alone is staggering. The California Aqueduct, the great concrete canal that carries water from north to south, has developed what engineers call bowls. Entire sections have sunk so severely that water pools inside them and cannot flow correctly. Operators are running water at the very limits of the canal's design, and if subsidence continues, the canal could lose its ability to transport water entirely. The Friant-Kern Canal, another critical artery of the system, has already lost 60% of its flow capacity from subsidence damage alone. Repairing it will cost $400 million, and engineers say openly that any repair is temporary. You cannot fix infrastructure built on ground that will not stop moving. For the people living on this ground, the crisis is not abstract. Over 4,200 residential wells have gone dry since 2013, and experts acknowledge that number is almost certainly an undercount. Many families simply leave without reporting anything. The communities losing their water access are predominantly low-income rural towns with no backup systems, no alternative sources, no safety net. Families are hauling water for basic needs, or they are abandoning homes that their families have lived in for generations. And as those families leave, the communities that remain face rising costs, shrinking tax bases, and the quiet collapse of everything that made small-town rural life possible. Farmers who can afford to are responding by drilling deeper. New wells now routinely go to 2,000 feet, depths that were unthinkable a generation ago. A single well at those depths costs over $1 million. And at those depths, they are no longer reaching water that was deposited last winter or even last decade. They are reaching water that recharged thousands of years ago, water that will never be replenished on any timescale that matters to a human being. What they are doing is not farming, it is mining, extracting a finite resource with no plan for what happens when it runs out. And there is a darker dynamic beneath even that. Every new deep well pulls from a shared resource. When one farmer drills deeper, they effectively steal water from every neighbor whose well no longer reaches the water table. It has been described as drinking your neighbor's milkshake. The result is a race to the bottom, every farm for itself, every deep well making every other well less effective, and the collective destruction of the aquifer accelerating with every new attempt to survive. California's policy response came in 2014 with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It required local agencies to develop sustainability plans and hit targets by 2040. On paper, it looks serious. It's practice. Many of the plans were built on an assumption that Stanford's research has now demolished. They assumed that stabilizing water levels would stop the subsidence, that once pumping balanced with recharge, the sinking would simply stop. Plan after plan, agency after agency, the same assumption. Stabilize the water, stabilize the land. Stanford's 2025 follow-up modeling destroyed that premise entirely. Stabilizing water levels will slow the rate of new subsidence. It will not stop the compaction of deep clay that is already underway. The plans are built on physics that do not apply. Kings County, one of the hardest-hit regions, was placed on probation by state regulators in April 2024 for failing to develop an adequate groundwater plan. The county's response captured the impossible position these communities are in. Compliance, they said, means economic death. They called it becoming a ghost town. There is no option that does not cost something enormous. There is only the question of who pays and when. The footage from California's Central Valley is still spreading. People watch the tilted buildings, the cracked roads, the bent canal walls, and they try to make sense of something that looks like an aftermath without a visible disaster. But that is exactly what it is. The disaster happened underground, slowly, over decades, in clay layers a mile beneath the surface where no camera could reach. What the footage captures is not a warning. It is a receipt, evidence of something that cannot be undone. The ground fell, and it is going to keep falling. And the only real question left is what we plan to grow when the foundation is finally gone.